All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're tackling a topic that a lot of you have been requesting:
Oh, yeah.
survival gardening. We've
Yeah.
got a ton of stuff to get through. We've got a stack of Reddit threads and articles,
Oh, wow.
even a blog post.
Sounds like a lot of opinions.
It is. There are a lot of strong opinions, and it seems like it's everyone from like the hardcore preppers to just folks who want to make sure they have fresh vegetables no matter what happens.
Yeah, if the grocery store shelves are empty.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, our mission today is to uncover some expert advice on creating a self-sufficient garden. We're going to learn about the best crops for survival situations, and we're going to discover some surprising advice from experienced gardeners.
Oh, I like surprises.
Yeah. Well, speaking of surprises, you're not going to believe this. In one of these sources, there's a story about a gardener who fought off a coyote barehanded
What?
to protect their chickens.
Wow, that's dedication.
I know, right? Talk about commitment.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a perfect example of how survival gardening is about more than just, having a hobby.
Right.
It's about resilience and being able to take care of yourself, especially when things get a little unpredictable.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when your food supply is uncertain.
Exactly. Okay, so, for those of us who are used to just planting tomatoes in the summertime,
Right.
what makes a survival garden different?
Well, it's really all about calorie-dense, storable crops
Okay.
and crops that can thrive in your specific climate.
Right.
The focus really is on self-reliance and getting the most out of your garden, even in tough conditions.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a learning curve, even for like experienced gardeners. I was reading one of these sources about an experiment this person did, and their potato yield was much lower than they expected.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a learning curve in soil health and climate and even pest control.
Right.
They all become so much more critical when you're relying on this garden.
For sure. All right, well, let's talk crops because the Reddit threads were blowing up with suggestions. Potatoes were like the number one. Everyone was saying potatoes.
Okay.
Along with kale, carrots, onions, garlic. Somebody even mentioned Jerusalem artichokes.
Oh, wow. That's a range. Those are all great choices, though.
They are. What makes those good?
Well, potatoes are like calorie dense and they're relatively easy to grow.
Okay.
Carrots are packed with vitamins and they store well.
Mm-hmm.
And onions and garlic. They not only add flavor to your dishes, but they also have natural antibacterial properties.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like you're already thinking about, like, you might not have medicine.
Right.
You might need those antibacterial properties.
Exactly.
That's really smart. It's funny. I was reading one Redditor admitted to eating all their peas straight off the vine and absolutely hating broccoli. So I guess even in a survival situation, your taste buds still matter.
Oh, yeah. You're more likely to stick with it if you actually enjoy what you're growing.
Totally. But even with your favorite crops, there's a lot to learn about the actual gardening techniques.
Right.
What jumped out at you from the sources we looked at?
Well, I mean, there was a big debate about transplanting versus direct sowing.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
Some people swear by starting seeds indoors,
Yeah.
and others just like to plant them directly in the ground.
I'm a direct sower. What about you?
Well, transplanting can give you a little bit of a head start,
Oh, okay.
and it protects your little seedlings.
Makes sense.
But direct sowing can sometimes produce stronger plants because they don't have to go through that transplant shock.
Oh, that's a good point. So I guess it kind of just depends on the plant.
It does depend on the crop and your local climate.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The Three Sisters planting method.
Oh, yes, the Three Sisters.
Now, it's a traditional companion planting technique, which is both like historic and really practical.
I love it.
It's pretty cool. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, the Three Sisters, it involves planting corn, beans, and squash together.
Okay.
So the corn stalks actually support the climbing beans.
Oh, that's cool.
The beans add nitrogen to the soil, which helps all three plants.
Oh, wow.
And then the squash leaves shade the ground to keep moisture in and prevent weeds.
So they all help each other.
Exactly. It's a beautiful symbiotic system.
That's really cool. And then another method that I thought was really interesting, especially for beginners,
Yeah.
was square foot gardening,
Oh, yeah?
especially if you have like limited space.
Definitely.
The good way to like maximize your space.
Yes. It's all about maximizing your space.
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, you basically divide your garden into square foot plots
Okay.
and you plant densely within them. So it's a great way to get organized and really make the most of every inch.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the Redditors actually mentioned they were thinking about doing what's called guerrilla gardening,
Guerrilla gardening.
which is like planting in public spaces. I mean, I don't know if that's legal everywhere, but
Yeah, I mean, I think respecting public property and local regulations is key.
right.
But it's great that people are thinking creatively about finding places to garden.
Definitely. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about something that's really fundamental to all of this,
Oh.
and that's soil health.
The foundation.
Yeah, and a lot of the sources we looked at really emphasized how important healthy soil is, especially when you're talking about a survival situation where you might not have the best conditions.
Right. Soil is the foundation of a thriving garden.
Right.
It provides all the nutrients and the structure that your plants need.
Right.
And especially when you might not have access to like store-bought fertilizers, building healthy soil is even more crucial.
Yeah, for sure. I saw some stuff about the different types of soil.
Oh, yeah.
Sand, silt, clay,
Loam.
loam, and loam was like the holy grail, right?
Loam is the ideal
Okay.
because it has a nice balance of sand, silt, and clay. And it also has organic matter. This mix makes it drain well. It retains moisture, and it provides all those essential nutrients.
So even if you don't have perfect loam, are there ways to like improve your soil?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
There are definitely ways to improve your soil.
Like composting.
Composting is an excellent way to improve your soil.
Okay.
Yeah, you're recycling your kitchen scraps and your yard waste into this nutrient-rich fertilizer.
Wow, so it's like a 2-for-1. You're getting rid of your scraps and you're helping your garden.
Exactly. It reduces waste and it creates healthier soil.
I like it. What about mulching?
Mulching. Yeah, that's another great technique.
That seems pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
You're just spreading a layer of organic material over the soil.
Right, exactly. And the mulch helps to suppress weeds, it helps retain moisture, and it regulates soil temperature.
Oh, wow, it does all that.
Yeah, and as it decomposes, it adds even more organic matter to your soil. So it improves the structure and the fertility.
Mm-hmm. It's like its own little ecosystem happening on top of the soil.
It is.
Wow, and then there's cover crops?
Yes, cover crops.
Which I don't know a ton about.
Well, cover crops are planted specifically to improve your soil health.
Okay.
They can help prevent erosion.
Okay.
They add nutrients, and they can break up compacted soil.
So do you plant them like at the same time as your other plants, or?
Typically, you plant them in the off-season
Oh.
when you're not growing your main crops.
So they're like prepping the soil.
Exactly.
That's really cool. It's amazing how much is happening beneath the surface.
Right.
Like we see the plants, but there's this whole other world.
There's a whole ecosystem down there.
Wow. And so understanding that is key
Yeah.
to having a good survival garden.
Yeah. It's key to creating a truly self-sufficient garden.
Awesome. Now, what about extending the growing season? Because I know that was a big topic in some of these sources. Things like hoop houses, greenhouses, overwintering certain crops. I mean, it's amazing to think you can garden even when it's cold outside.
It is. And extending the growing season helps maximize your yields.
Okay.
And it ensures a more consistent food supply.
Right?
So hoop houses and greenhouses create protected environments that trap heat.
Oh, okay.
So you can start planting earlier and harvest later.
That makes sense.
And then some crops like kale and carrots, they can even survive the winter with a little bit of protection.
Oh, interesting. What about overwintering crops?
Yeah, overwintering crops, so there's some different strategies for that.
Wow.
Well, one source I was looking at suggested using cold frames. They're kind of like mini greenhouses you build over individual beds.
Oh, okay.
Another idea was using cloches, which are like individual plant covers. You can make them out of glass or even recycled plastic bottles.
Oh, that's cool. So
Yeah.
it's like DIY.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, and even if you can't grow everything year round,
Right?
I imagine having like proper storage is key.
Oh.
So you can enjoy your harvest throughout the winter.
Definitely.
Now, speaking of expanding beyond just veggies,
Yeah.
the sources also talked about incorporating things like fruit trees,
Okay.
herbs, and even chickens
Mm-hmm.
into a self-sufficient setup.
Oh, wow.
Take things to a whole new level.
It does. You're like creating a whole ecosystem.
You are.
What are the advantages of adding those elements?
Well, fruit trees and berry bushes, they're fantastic for long-term sustainability.
Okay.
They require very minimal maintenance once they're established,
Right.
and they provide a reliable source of fresh fruit.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then chickens are a wonderful addition too because they offer both eggs and meat.
Oh, yeah. Plus you get fertilizer.
Exactly. Their manure is excellent fertilizer for your garden.
It's like everything works together.
It does.
That's really cool. One Redditor in the tropics mentioned having to go to 3 different stores just to buy beets,
Wow.
but they said it was worth it.
That's dedication.
I know. They must really love beets.
They must.
But I guess it shows like even if you don't have everything available,
Right.
you know, it's worth the effort.
It is. It's prioritizing what you truly value.
Yeah.
and what you're willing to put effort into.
For sure. But of course, even with careful planning,
Right.
there are always challenges in survival gardening.
Yeah, there are.
Like pests and diseases, they're a reality for any gardener.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine in a survival situation when you might not have access to commercial pesticides,
Right.
things can get tricky. So what did the experts recommend for dealing with these issues organically?
Well, companion planting came up a lot,
Oh, yeah.
especially the Three Sisters method.
Right, because they kind of protect each other.
They do. They help each other grow, but they also help deter pests.
Oh, that's cool. How does that work?
Well, for example, the strong scent of onions can actually repel certain insects that might target your other crops.
So it's like you're using nature's own defense mechanisms.
Exactly.
That's really cool. What about seed saving?
Seed saving. That's crucial for long-term self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
But I know it can seem a bit daunting.
Yeah, a little bit.
But you don't have to become like a master seed saver overnight.
Right.
Even just saving seeds from a few of your favorite varieties
Okay.
can make a big difference.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it reduces your reliance on external sources.
Mm-hmm.
And it also allows you to select for traits that do well in your specific climate.
Oh, that's a good point.
And plus, there's something deeply satisfying about continuing that cycle of life.
Yeah.
Collecting and planting seeds from your own garden.
I bet it's like a legacy.
It is.
That's really cool. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
If someone is like brand new to gardening
Mm-hmm.
and they want to start a survival garden, where do they even begin?
Well, research is key.
Okay.
Understanding your climate, your soil type, and any unique challenges your region might have.
Right. You wouldn't want to plant like watermelons in the Arctic.
Exactly. Probably not a good idea.
Yeah. So do your research first.
Yeah.
What's next?
Start small and manageable.
Okay.
You don't have to create this giant homestead overnight.
Right.
Begin with just a few key crops, you'll actually eat
Okay.
and enjoy,
Right.
and focus on mastering the basics.
The basics. Yeah.
Watering, weeding, pest control.
Right.
Don't be afraid to experiment and learn from your mistakes.
Yeah. Everybody makes mistakes.
Everyone does.
What about connecting with other gardeners?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Would that be helpful?
Absolutely. Joining like a local gardening club
Okay.
or connecting with other gardeners online can provide invaluable advice.
Yeah.
You get to hear their experiences.
Share tips.
Yeah, it creates a sense of community.
Yeah, because gardening doesn't have to be a solitary pursuit.
It doesn't.
Thinking back to that gardener who chased off the coyote,
Yeah.
it really strikes me that survival gardening is about so much more than just food.
It is.
It's about resilience, resourcefulness,
Mm-hmm.
a deeper connection to nature.
Exactly. It's about taking charge of your own well-being.
And that brings up a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Can these principles of survival gardening, like self-reliance, sustainability, resourcefulness, can they be applied beyond just emergency situations?
That is a good question.
Yeah, I mean, could it be like a philosophy for just living a more resilient and fulfilling life,
Exactly.
even in times when things are good?
Yeah, it's a shift from like dependence to empowerment. Always consuming to actively creating.
Yeah, and so it's more than just, stockpiling food. It's
Right.
about understanding where your food comes from,
Mm-hmm.
appreciating nature,
Yeah,
and just taking charge of your own well-being.
absolutely. That's the heart of it.
That is the heart of it.
And it's something we can all strive for.
Yeah.
Whether we have acres of land or a few pots on a windowsill.
That's a great point. You know what? This has been such an eye-opening deep dive into survival gardening.
It has.
We've covered so much.
Yeah, we have.
From picking the perfect crops to dealing with pests, and even just like the bigger picture of what this all means
Mhm.
for how we live our lives.
It's been so fascinating to see how much interest and passion there is around this topic.
Yeah,
It's clearly more than just having a backup plan.
right.
It's about connecting with something fundamental.
Absolutely. Well, if this deep dive has inspired you to start your own survival garden,
Yeah?
or even just add a few more herbs to your window box,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
Share your
The
experiences,
successes.
even your gardening fails, because let's be honest, we've all had them.
Oh, we all have.
But yeah, until next time, happy gardening, everyone.
Happy gardening.